Hello, I'm just checking to see if it's coming live. It's Alex from Infant Feeding. I'm really sorry we didn't do a session last week and there was a bit of a miscommunication, but I'm here this week. We will be having a break again next week, just as a heads up. And then after that, we'll be around for the foreseeable future. No more holidays booked, so just looking to see if we've got anyone joining us. It's such a beautiful day, I can't imagine why anyone would be wanting to be sitting in front of here. Or maybe you're hiding from the sun, who knows. Oh, lovely, I can see people coming up. It's so nice, it's so reassuring to know you're not on your own, just talking to a screen. So I can see some people appearing, that's so nice. So I'm just gonna get this coming up so I can see on here any questions that I get. Oh, we might just turn the sound off though. Brilliant. Well, I don't know about any of you, but I'm pretty warm. It's very warm in this hospital. We're allowed not to wear tights, but they don't allow for the fact these uniforms are really thick and really hot. So I'm quite warm here today. And you know, as you know, anyone who's been here, this place is warm at the best of times, let alone at and when the temperatures outside is quite warm. So so I thought I'd make that the theme of today, actually, you know, in between the questions that you're posing, and I hope you're going to come all join me with lots and lots of questions. Keep it going, so I don't want it to be just me talking, but I thought we could talk about the warmth, you know, high temperatures and babies, so thinking about what we should be doing and what we should be aware of. So I've had a look around online and there's a few bits and bobs. The Lullaby Trust have done a great information session. I'm just going to pull it up. It's called Baby Summer Safety. It's well worth having a look. So Lullaby Trust is a fantastic charity that provides information a lot about safe sleep and keep protecting babies. So having a look at that, and I'll signpost you to it from that point of view. So if you did a search on Google for Lullaby Trust Summer Safety, up it would come, and I'll show you the screen. I mean, it's not gonna, I was going to try and print it, but it didn't come as a leaflet. They've done a gorgeous picture. Now I know the writing's going to be back to front, but the picture you'll be able to appreciate. So what you can see is two little babies with sunglasses on underneath an umbrella. It's so cute, looking very, very happy. So it's really cute. But some of you might be shielding from the sun, and we know that tomorrow is going to be even hotter. So from that point of view, I thought it'd be well worth talking about things to be aware of. So this little leaflet talks about things to protect yourselves from. They even have a little video. I haven't watched the video, so maybe somebody could watch that and feedback and see what they think of it. But what they were talking about is things like travelling by car. So they mention that car seats are essential for travel, but babies shouldn't be in a car seat for long periods of time. So if you're going on a long journey, they're recommending that you stop frequently and get your baby out of the car seat. They suggest that maybe someone sits in the back seat with the baby so they can be seen, and they suggest if that isn't possible that you have a mirror, so you can have your rear view mirror that looks into a mirror above the baby so you can see your baby. So that way that you can keep an eye on them, because what we don't want is babies slumped over, because that's not good for their breathing and it can be, you know, can be quite dangerous. So think about, you know, if you're planning journeys, if you're going anywhere, and it's, you know, just making it as safe as possible. Now that's relevant at any point in time, but particularly relevant when it's warm. So they talk about following a safe sleep routine on holiday. So thinking about if you are going on holiday, you know, what are you going, you know, what facilities can you get to ensure that your baby has a very good sleep surface, a safe sleep surface. We talk about nice flat surface, and you know, sort of their own covers, not too hot, and not sharing covers with you. So you know, maybe you have a travel cot and think about where that travel cot is. Don't have it up somewhere against, you know, a window that's going to be warm. So thinking, and sometimes it can be quite challenging to get a travel cot into a room when there may not be much room. They talk about keeping babies cool when out and about, and that's something that's very relevant to everybody from the point of view, you do see it, you see the hood up and then a blanket or something over the baby to protect from the sun. Well, actually what that does, it causes a little microclimate underneath the blanket, and actually it's much, much better to have a parasol or something like that than enclose the baby, because the temperature is hotter inside the pram then. So think about when you're going out and about, you know, have something that protects your baby but doesn't stop cool air or air moving, because that's, you know, that's not safe for the baby as well. So I think they put it on here. It says prams and buggies should not be covered with blankets, cloths, or any cover that prevents the air circulating. Covering a pram or buggy with a blanket could lead to overheating, which increases the risk of sudden infant death. So it is well worth thinking about, if you're going out and about, protecting your baby, maybe a parasol would be a better option than having you know, something that covers the over entirely. Fluids, now this is where it really becomes relevant to us, and this is the infant feeding session. Anybody who's just joined me, this is the session mostly about feeding, but we do get very involved in the sleeping and early days, etc. as well as a team. That's part of our remit. So feeding, if you're a breastfeeding mum and it's very warm outside, your baby does not need any water. Your baby just needs to go to the breast slightly more frequently. And you'll find that, and I spoke to a mummy yesterday who was finding that her baby was feeding a bit more often than normal. And we just talked about the fact that it was a bit warmer than they've been used to, and that baby's coming back. Remember, your baby's getting everything they need from you as a breastfeeding mum. So they're getting their drink and they're getting their food. And sometimes they just want a bit more frequent feeds to be hydrated. You do not need to give a baby water. So any breastfed baby does not need to have water. And this applies throughout the world, even in very hot climates. I know we only have the occasional hot day, but wherever a baby is in the world, a baby that is being breastfed only needs breast milk. Do not need to give it any water. Now, if you are formula feeding, yes, you can give some cool boiled water in a bottle. So that's different, because it's more difficult for the baby to, just take that little hydrating quick feed as opposed to a bottle feed. So if you're formula feeding your baby and you think your baby could do with a bit more hydration, then you can give cool boiled waters on very, very hot days. The norm would be just normal milk, but on, as in formula milk, but if it is very warm and you think your baby needs a bit more, then cool boiled water. Now, this is all the way up to 6 months, so you don't need to be thinking about anything else. Remember, milk is the main food for the first 6 months of life before anything else. So when they talk about it on here, they actually write making sure your baby has enough fluids. So when the weather is hot, it's important to make sure that your baby has plenty of fluids. Fully breastfed babies don't need any extra water until they start eating solid food. So that's what I meant about the 6 months. After 6 months, you could be offering a cup of cool boiled water. During hot water, they may want to breastfeed more often, and if you're bottle feeding as well as their usual milk feeds, you can give a baby a little bit of cool boiled water. If your baby wakes at night, they'll probably want milk, and if they have had their usual milk feed, try cool boiled water as well, and that's for the babies that are being formula fed. So that's what they're saying on the Lullaby Trust summer safety tips for anybody who may have just joined us. So thinking about room temperature, so we've got the issue of keeping these rooms cool. So, and as the Lullaby Trust says, that babies that get too hot have a higher increased risk of sudden infant death. So we're thinking about trying to keep your rooms cool. So somewhere between 16 and 20 degrees is the ideal, and it can be much more difficult in the summer. So keep the curtains closed, make sure the bedding is as light as can be, keep the windows and doors open to get air moving. So they talk about maybe using a fan, so you could use a fan to cool the room, but don't aim it directly at the baby. And having a thermometer in the room will be helpful. So thinking about that, and I think sometimes upstairs can be hotter than downstairs, can't it? So maybe moving the cot downstairs where it's cooler, as long as they're with you. Remember, babies should always be in the same sleep environment as you. It's by far the safest place to be. So having babies near you protects them from sudden infant death, and I suspect they probably mention it as well here. So they're talking about co-sleeping safety. So we're talking about making sure that you're being careful. We, as you all know, having had any alcohol or any medications that might make you more drowsy does put your baby more at risk when it comes to bed if you were going to co-sleep, and so thinking about reducing those risks as best you can. So I highly recommend having a look at this leaflet, because it's very, very good, called Baby Summer Safety: How to Keep Baby Safe When the Weather Gets Hot. And I think with tomorrow looming, and I think they were talking about in the 30s tomorrow, then this would be a good thing to think about. So just to reiterate, breastfed babies do not need anything other than breast milk. The likelihood is your baby will feed a little bit more frequently than normal, but go with it. Formula fed babies, if they've had their normal feeds and are still looking for a bit more fluid, you could offer them some cool boiled water. Breastfed babies after the age of 6 months could have cool boiled water alongside other foods as well as their breast milk if they're looking for more food. And then thinking about, if you're out and about, making sure that you don't have the baby in the car seat for too long, because that's risky. Getting the baby out, checking on them, making sure they're not slumped forward. So have a look at that leaflet. That's a really good one. So I can see that Charlotte's put a comment up, and I just wonder if anybody else has. just Charlotte so far. So Charlotte has said, "Hi hun, hope you're well and keeping safe. Alicia's having a nap." And she's going to say again, "Food before 1 is just for fun." So, and Charlotte, thank you for the lovely pics you sent. It was lovely to see Alicia. It was absolutely gorgeous. So thinking about the things that we've been seeing in clinic. So we've been talking about in clinic about optimal weight gain. So, you know, when we're looking at babies, we are looking at babies, as you're probably aware, any of you who've already had your babies are aware that we do a day 5 weight. And on day 5, we anticipate a baby may lose a little bit of weight, up to 10% is considered within norm. But after that, we're wanting babies to gain. And just to sort of, for those that have watched this many times before will know that we're looking for baby girls to gain in the region of 20 grams a day. And we're looking for baby boys to gain in the region of 30 grams a day, and that is from day 5 onwards. So whilst I know that there isn't always access to scales, what you can be doing is looking at the poos and wees, and they can be a really good indicator of what's going on. And I know we mentioned this a lot on these sessions, but I'm just going to get out, hopefully we've got a copy of the leaflet here. We have. So at your 36-week scan, you should be given this leaflet. I know it's going to be back to front, but it says off to the best start. So it's a really, really good, simple guide to feeding. It talks about what Start for Life is, which is the organisation that does it, about mum's milk. What does her milk protect her baby against? What to expect after your baby's born, and there's a lovely picture of a baby skin to skin, as you can see. A section on how to breastfeed and some beautiful positioning and attachment pictures on this page. So you can see there some lovely pictures. Top tips, and then my favourite page, and then hand expressing my favourite page is this one. This is the poos and wees page. It's page 17. So this is a really good guide for you out there with your babies to know your baby's getting enough food. And with the hot weather, again, you're going to be looking at those nappies. Are they getting drier? Is the poo harder? You know, is there less liquid in it? Maybe your baby needed a bit more fluid then. So you're looking for, from day 4 onwards, 2 yellow nappies every single day, 2 yellow poos minimum every day, and 6 heavy wet nappies. So again, this is a really good indicator of what's happening with your baby, and it's there, it's instant for you to see. We talk about 4 reliable signs of milk transfer, and they go from watching the baby go to the breast, doing those deep, going from quick into long deep sucks that tell you the baby's been rewarded with milk. That's number 1. Number 2 and 3 are the poos and the wees. So that's telling us if the baby is weeing and you're getting at least 6 heavy wet nappies a day, and you're getting a minimum of 2 yellow stools a day, you know that baby is getting enough food, okay? And that's right up to 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, many babies that are breastfed will actually extend the period of time between stooling, and they may not poo as often as they have done up till then. So just think about that tomorrow when you think, you know, when it's very warm and it's warm today, you know, have a look at those nappies. Is your baby weeing and pooing as much as you would expect? And maybe you need to just offer maybe a couple more breastfeeds, or you maybe, if you're formula feeding, offer a little bit of water. Now I can see questions coming through, which is lovely, because as I say, I much prefer to have people asking questions than me doing all the talking. So Charlotte has said, my little girl is 3 weeks old and I think she might have a tongue tie. How can I get this checked? That's a really good question, Charlotte, because we get that all the time. So you have, what we do at the breastfeeding clinic is often we do oral assessments to check for babies. So we see many babies that come through with tongue tie coming to us, and it might be because the baby is struggling to attach, it might be because the baby is not gaining weight, or it might be that the mother's not is really very sore. It could be a combination or all of those, and it could be some other things too, but those are the main things we see when tongue tie is affecting feeding. So whilst we don't look at tongue tie in the first few days of life, because you can have a tongue tie but it doesn't impact on feeding, if it's impacting on feeding, then it needs to be assessed. So you can give us a call, Charlotte, and we can book you into breastfeeding clinic, and we will do an oral assessment on your baby. And if we feel your baby needs to be referred, we refer them to ENT. So just to warn you, the ENT have a wait list of somewhere between 2 and 4 weeks to be seen. I'm not quite sure where we are at the moment, but they will see you within 2 to 4 weeks after we've referred you, and we refer you on the day that we see you. Some people choose to go and see an independent practitioner, because of the speed of being seen. So give us a call, book an appointment with us. You can find our number on our web page, and we'll book you into clinic. We will support you with breastfeeding. We will help you with your milk supply if that needs any support, and we do an oral assessment. It all comes together in the appointment. You'll get an hour with us, and we will say whether we feel that the tongue tie is impacting on feeding. There are many people out there walking around with very obvious tongue ties who have no problems and have had no problems with feeding or talking. We only do it if there's a reason, if there's a problem with feeding. So if feeding is going well, the baby's gaining weight, they're attaching, you're not sore, but we can still see a tongue tie, then that isn't an indication to do it. We often find that you can get very thin ones right at the front, and they will sort themselves out in the end, because very often when babies are getting a bit older, they're putting things in their mouth, and if it's a very thin one at the front, it'll just go. It's very much to do with what mobility the tongue has, not what can be seen. So when we do an oral assessment, we don't just look at it, we have a really good feel around, we feel the baby suck, we look to see what the baby can do with their tongue, how they move their tongue, and then we go from there. So as you can imagine, we don't want to send babies off to have frenulotomies, it's called, a tongue tie snip, where they literally put a pair of scissors in and underneath the tongue, unless it's absolutely necessary. So if things are going well, then we wouldn't be recommending it. So book an appointment, come and see us, and we'll do an oral assessment, support you through all the other things, and if we think that your baby needs to be seen, we'll refer them. I hope that answers your question. And I'm sure many other people are thinking the same. It's something that comes up so often. We hear it a lot. I think people are so aware of tongue tie. When my babies were born, no one talked about tongue tie. And I can remember when I saw my first tongue tie, I remember quite clearly where I was and everything. And that's not that long ago. So I think we've become much more aware of them, but I think there's a real risk that we overdiagnose them as well. Because as I say, there are many people out there who have a frenulum, because we all have a frenulum to some extent, who have a frenulum that is evident, but actually it's not causing any problems at all. And I always say this when we talk about tongue tie on this, I think Jamie Oliver probably has a tongue tie just because of the way he speaks. So Taya has written, thank you, I have my little girl that's 8 days today, milk's established well, thank you for all the advice and guidance. My question was to cover that today of all days she's feeding a lot more and very attached, but you've now covered this with the warm weather, so I'm glad this is more expected. Well done, Taya. It's so lovely to have your feedback and hear how well you're doing. And yes, don't be surprised, and share it with your friends. I'm sure there are many of you that are on WhatsApp groups from antenatal classes and people that you've met and are in the same situation as you. So share it with your friends. Tell them it's normal for babies to feed more frequently when the weather is warm, because they're looking for more hydration. And if your friends are formula feeding, say to them, if they think the baby needs a bit more, actually they can give a little bit of cool boiled water if they think they've had enough in the way of formula milk. So do share the love on this one. Charlotte's popped another one up saying Alicia was 6'3" at birth, 6 pounds 3 at birth, and she lost weight, and we had to do formula milk and breast milk because I didn't have enough breast milk. But now Alicia is quite a tall 2-year-old girl. Wow, how amazing. And I know she's walking beautifully, and she can kick a ball because you sent me some pickies, which is lovely. I'm going to go back to Charlotte's question about tongue tie. I just want to reiterate that, having a frenulum in our mouths is normal. Everybody, if you go and look in a mirror, lift your tongue, you will be able to see you've got a frenulum of some extent. When people talk about seeing a tongue tie, it's because it's right near the front, they can see it there. But actually some of our more tricky ones are further back when they really can't be seen. So if you're having problems with feeding and you can't work out why, and everybody's telling you that you've got great positioning and attachment, and yet you're still sore, or your baby's still struggling to attach, or your baby's still struggling to gain weight, then get in touch, because that could be that it isn't a tongue tie that's impacting. So as I said, we don't look at it routinely. The reason for that, as I said, we worry about over-diagnosing. So we tend to go with, is the mother having feeding problems? And when we try to assess what's going on, that becomes part of the assessment. So it's not on its own, it's with everything else. We're going to look at, how does this baby feed? Does it go on the breast well? Does it get a really good mouthful? Do we see it going into the long deep sucks? Is it transferring milk? Has the mother got enough milk? Because that's part of it. What are the stools doing? What are the wees doing? So is this baby pooing and weeing appropriate to age? And as I mentioned earlier, that's constantly changing what they're doing. Are they managing, are they doing a minimum of 2 stools every day, 6 heavy wet nappies every day? If they're doing all of that, but you can see something in the mouth and everything is fine, then there would be no indication to do it. And we often get asked, I mentioned about Jamie Oliver, we get asked about speech. Well, we've had speech therapists come through our service, using our service, and we've talked to them about that, and they said you cannot know that it's going to have an impact on speech, and it should only be addressed if it does have an impact on speech. So, if you come to us, we will refer if we feel it's impacting on feeding. If everything else is going well, then we would not normally be referring. So that's where we are on tongue ties. And I know it's a really, really moot point. It comes up a lot when people give feedback. We quite often get nobody looked for a tongue tie. Well, what we're looking at is how is feeding going, and then it's part of the assessment. If feeding's not going well, could it be this? Should we rule it out? So if mum comes to clinic to meet me, I'm often will say to them, shall we rule out there's not a problem? Whilst you can be aware of a tongue tie, what you may not be aware of is that actually many babies might have a raised palate. And any mum that's come through with me and met me through clinic will know that I talk about churches. So I talk about what is the roof like of the palate of the baby. So I will talk about whether it's just a normal church roof, is it or is it a cathedral? So a cathedral is going to be really high. So if it's and that might cause problems in itself. Having a high palate sometimes goes hand in hand with having a tongue tie, just because of where the baby's tongue has sat in utero. If you think if it's held back, it's going to sit higher, so then it pushes the palate up a bit. So it's thinking about the whole picture. So when we do an oral assessment, we look at what can the tongue do, mobility wise. Does it come at, does the baby get it over its gum? Can it go side to side? Can it lift its tongue? We feel the suck, we feel the palate. We look at underneath the tongue to see what the frenulum is like, and we do a full assessment. Can the baby hold onto our finger when they're sucking our fingers? So it's a really full-on assessment. It's not just what we see, and that's why we involve the palate as well, because the palate has a big impact. If you imagine a baby whose tongue is restricted and the baby's got a high palate, then they're going to struggle to get the breast up into there, because when the baby feeds, they feed like this. They're removing milk. And as you can see, the nipple is right up against the soft palate, and this is the hard palate, and they're doing this. If the palate is like that, you can see the gap here, then the baby's going to struggle to really fill that gap. Oh, Charlotte, you're being a laugh. You're sending me lots of questions still, lots of things to say. Sorry if it's a silly question, but is it okay to give Alicia a bottle of tea, as I'm not sure whether to? Oh, good one on that one. It's funny, when I lived in the Netherlands, I lived in Holland for a good few years, they always gave children tea. I wonder if it should be a decaffeinated one though, bearing in mind it's got caffeine in tea. Children normally are very happy with water and milk, and that's their main staple. So those are the best foods to be giving babies, is milk and water. And certainly if you were going to give tea, it's not to put sugar in it. So have a chat with your health visitor on that one. That would be a good thing to have a quick chat with them about. I have seen it done, but I don't know what the latest advice is on that one. So you're being very quiet, all of you out there. How about some more questions, please? I know one thing that's come up recently is we often talk about it on here, is hand expressing in the antenatal period. So for any of those that are listening that are expecting their babies, then we do talk about it quite a lot. When you get off to the best start at your 36-week scan appointment, as I mentioned, there is a page on hand expressing. It's pages 14 and 15, and it's a little guide on how to hand express. Hand expressing is a fabulous tool to have. You don't have to necessarily collect it. Mothers who have maybe got diabetes, or know their baby's going to be born prematurely, or know their baby's going to end up going to the special care baby unit for any reason, for them it would be well worthwhile collecting colostrum before they have their baby, because that will help with the transition. But if you haven't got any of those risk factors, just learning how to do it before you have your baby is really beneficial. I was on a training day earlier this week. With lots of people from the maternity staff, about 40 of us on it, and I was doing my normal presentation about feeding, and we were chatting about it, and I asked about from other areas within the hospital, what did they feel parents needed to know that would be really helpful. And one of the members of staff who works on our observation area, now that's where you would go if you had a section, or you had a forceps delivery or a ventouse delivery. So it's like the, not having had having had a spontaneous vaginal delivery. So unless you had a big bleed. So those are the mothers who maybe have not gone quite as planned, and they end up on OA, an observation area. So it's slightly more sort of more, it's a recovery area is what it is. And the member of staff there said it's so helpful when women know how to hand express before they end up there. So that means in the antenatal period, because they'll go straight from having birth and giving birth to there. So learning how to hand express is a good skill to have before you've had your baby, because you don't have to learn it when you're really tired. So the mothers who do end up on observation area tend to be very tired. They may have had a long labour, they may have been in theatre, and they're going to be sort of at a bit of a low ebb. So now having the skill already is really beneficial. So, I think I would highly recommend everybody learns how to do it, but you don't need to collect it unless there's a particular risk factor. One of the other things that came up is that we need to try and work out storage. So at the moment we're asking you not to bring too much in, bring a little bit in, bring it in a cool box, bring it with ice blocks, because once defrosted it needs to be used within 12 hours. And if you're coming in for an induction of labour, you may not even be on the delivery suite in 12 hours, depending on how things go. So there is always the risk that it might defrost. So we tend to try and ask you to bring as little in as possible. And if you need more, ask someone to bring it in for you. I know that can be challenging because Oxfordshire is a big county, and you could be quite a distance away. We are trying to address that. We're trying to see if we can get a freezer and a good tracking system to follow the mothers around, because what we found in the past is that mothers might bring it in, and then the reason we say bring it in a cool box is because it gets handed to someone and then we lose track of it around the hospital, because you can come in and go to many places. Many mothers will go through maternity assessment unit, delivery suite, observation area and level 5. Well, that's 4 different areas, and it's got to follow you around. If you're coming in for an induction, then you will be coming in and you'll be going to level 6, the induction bay, and then down to delivery suite. So you can see how sometimes the colostrum doesn't follow a mother around the building. So we need to have one central point to sort that out. So we're working on that at the moment. I can see I've got another question come up. Thank you very much, Helen. She says, my 8-week-old has been diagnosed with a tongue tie, getting it cut on Wednesday, but in the interim he's getting more and more frustrated. Biological nurturing well at home, but any tips for positioning a tongue-tied baby when out and about, hard to lie down? Upright. I would highly recommend upright, because that's what you're doing is biological nurturing, and you can do that out and about, Helen. So it's having your baby in that sort of position. So here. So thinking about, so it's like lying down, but you're sitting. So I'm going to try and do it so you can see. So you'd have the legs across you in, and then you can lean back a bit. So you can do that in a chair. I know it's going to be difficult for me sitting here, but you could end up have the baby facing you, and then you go back. So that would work out and about. And I think probably the likelihood is anybody looking at you'll have no idea what you're doing, because most people haven't seen a baby feed like that. So just go through the basics of upright feeding, which is what we call it. It's holding the baby around their torso. So fingers on the back, thumbs on the front. Try to resist putting your thumbs up here, because look what happens to the arms. We want like this, okay? So think thumbs on nipples rather than up there. So thumbs on nipples. And then it's lining the baby up so that they are nose to nipple, and then they will tip their head back hopefully, and then you scoop them in. And you want to make sure they're coming from underneath. So the important part of that is where is your leg. So you don't want your leg right up here so they're higher than the breast. You might need to bring your leg down. So often when I'm supporting mothers to do this, I'm getting them to put their leg in front of them. The other part of it is to think about, where does your breast point? So most women's breasts point down and out. So bring your leg out. Bring your leg down and out so the baby comes on at the angle that your breast points. So rather than being here, they're here, if that makes sense. So you bring your leg out that way, like that. So that would be a way of doing it. It's pretty much very similar to biological nurturing. It has all the same basic tenets of biological nurturing because you've got that baby in really close contact to you. It's a lovely, lovely position from the point of view of making eye contact with your baby, because the baby is just there. You've got that lovely eye contact. So and when we talk about it on here quite often from the point of view of brain development, I always talk about this. It's thinking about every interaction you have with your baby, whether it's a breastfeeding you're looking at them, whether it's just stroking their head, which many mums do, chatting to them, even on the changing table, soothing them. Every positive interaction you have with your baby is boosting oxytocin in your baby, so that wonderful feel-good hormone that then is their brain fertilizer. So you're growing happy babies that will be happy toddlers and happy adults, and we're protecting them against mental health problems later in life. So this is all to do with bonding. Then it's really, really important. So I want to keep our babies close and meet their needs for closeness and comfort. And remember that you can't overfeed a breastfed baby, and you cannot love your baby too much. You cannot spoil your baby, so keep them close. You love them very much. I know it's going to be hard in this hot weather, but they still want to be near you. Let me have a quick look, because I can see Helen's come back. Okay, great, thanks. I'll give that a go. Didn't think about moving my leg. That's exactly what I was struggling with. He latches far, far better like this than any other way and can actually stay on for a full feed. Brilliant news. That's great. Right, I'm just going to go back up because I can see Heba has put a question up. Thank you. Let me just open it all up. Good afternoon. My baby's 7 months old and waking up 4 to 6 times a night and breastfed back to sleep every time. I've been given advice that if I really rely less on feeding him to sleep, e.g. when I first put him down for the night, that might help with his sleep, but I wondered what your thoughts were on this. Well, they're still really little at 7 months, and they're really not habit forming at this point. That's just what your baby needs at the moment, and I think at 7 months I wouldn't be worrying about it. I'm obviously concerned for you that you're being woken that many times, 4 to 6 times a night. I'm wondering where your baby's sleeping. You know, is your baby are you bed sharing? And if you're bed sharing, obviously, I'll just reiterate as always, you know, obviously good practice, never between 2 adults, on a flat surface, own covers, and not, you know, so something to stop them falling out of bed. But actually bed sharing can mean that you get more sleep overall, and it's thought that mothers that breastfeed get 45 minutes more sleep than mothers that formula feed. So, and often what mums find is when they're in a recovery position, so that sideline position and the babies are with them, is that actually they'll help themselves to the breast rather than the mother actually being really fully awake, and the baby will feed that way. So as long as you can minimise the risks, we can never eradicate risk, we can minimise the risks, and you've got your baby, you know, you're in a sideline position, so it's a recovery. You've got your arm up here, so you're not going to roll, and your knee on the bed. Then that, if you're not doing that already, that might help you a little bit. But I wouldn't be worrying at this point in time. It's very difficult. Most babies will want to go to sleep on the breast, and I think you'll really, really struggle to persuade your baby not to fall asleep at the breast. And at 7 months, they're still very young to be, you know, for anyone to expect them to sleep without being at the breast. I don't know if you are aware of La Leche League. La Leche League is a fabulous organisation, and they have some lovely resources. I would have a look at their resources and see what they've got there. They're very in touch with what babies are like and supporting mothers to mother, and they may have some things on there that might help you. And I think you'll find, if you made contact with the La Leche League, you'll find that many other mothers are finding a similar situation, but if you can go with it, then fabulous. You know, I know many babies will be waking at 7 months and long late, you know, a lot later than that, you know, for feeds. So I don't know that I've sorted that for you, Heba, but I would suggest, you know, looking at La Leche, and I would say it's fairly normal behaviour, and I don't think you'll necessarily manage to, you know, I don't think he's very young to be going to sleep without being at the breast. We always say that they can't manipulate you. We were saying about, I mentioned a minute ago, didn't I, about you can't spoil a baby. A baby is they're hardwired to ask for being close and needing you, and that's part of it. You know, they want to be close and have that their needs for closeness and comfort met. So this is what your baby's doing. It sounds like you're doing a great job, and if you can go with it, it will get better. It does get better in time, I can promise you. Right, so no questions again. So have a think about any questions. All you listeners, it's nice to see the numbers up there. I get a picture of numbers up there, so I have a rough idea of how many people are watching. So I know there's lots of you that are watching, so if you've got any questions, now's your chance. And if you've only just joined, just to say at the beginning, I talked about summer safety, warmth safety. So watch the beginning again if you didn't see it earlier. I talked about safety in warm weather. So thinking about your babies, and I can see a lovely question's just come up. Thank you, Gemma. Oh, there you go. Gemma has written, Heba, I breastfed my baby to sleep till he's self-weaned at 17 months. It was the easiest way for me to get him back to sleep. Cuddles didn't cut it, and I couldn't leave him to cry. I found 7 months to 9 months were the worst in terms of his wake-ups at night. He's now 27 months and sleeps just fine in his own room. Gemma, thank you. That just totally reiterates what I'm saying, and it is just so normal, and they cannot manipulate you. They have not got the brain capacity, and it's very difficult for them to do anything other than they want to do. So I love it. Thank you so much, Gemma. That's wonderful. Heba's come back. Thank you. I'll have a look at the La Leche website, and they're a great organisation to meet other mothers who are feeding, you know. So I mean, they're really supportive, and actually Oxfordshire has got some really good, you know, really good activity going on. I chair a meeting called the County-wide Breastfeeding Strategy Meeting, and we have input from the La Leche League, from Oxfordshire Breastfeeding Support, Wallingford Baby Bar, the health visitors, GPs and us, and the Abingdon Breastfeeding Cafe links in as well. So we know what's going on in the community. And the La Leche League are a great mother-to-mother support organisation, so it's well worth it. So, oh, that's lovely. Yeah, I think Heba's come back and said, thank you, Gemma, that's really reassuring. So that's brilliant. And I think it's so true, you know, babies do expect to be fed to sleep at this age. It's very early days to be expecting anything else. I think sometimes we're inundated with information online, and it's sometimes difficult to know where to go to get good, sound information, evidence-based information. And that's where I would say, you know, if I'm looking for information online, I will look at something like La Leche League. If I'm looking for stuff to send to mothers in a good format, I will look at La Leche League. I look at the Breastfeeding Network. The Breastfeeding Network is a fantastic organisation. They get a shout out from us on here very frequently because they have the most amazing resource, which is the drugs and breast milk facility. So, you know, if any of you are on any medications, for instance like antihistamine, and I don't know what the pollen count's doing at the moment, but it tends to go up when the weather's warm. You know, if you're worried about your antihistamine, if you're on antihistamine and you're worried about taking it, or you're trying not to take it, go and have a look at the Breastfeeding Network. Go and see what they say, because they have a look at all the different medications that we take commonly, and they tell you whether it's safe or not safe to take with feeding. Now, what we know is the majority of medications are safe, because what we should always be balancing up is the repercussions of not breastfeeding versus the repercussions of taking that medication. And sometimes, even if a little bit of that medication goes through, it's still worth it to keep that baby on breast milk. We have very few medications that we outright can't have mothers breastfeeding and taking. So there are one or two, and we support them as best we can, but it is not common. So if you're on a medication, anyone who's antenatal out there, if you're on a medication and you want to check it, go and have a look at the Breastfeeding Network. It's got a great, it's a whole long list of all the different things. So it's broken down into things like painkillers, antibiotics, antihistamines, and then it looks at other medications as well, things that may be slightly more unusual. If you're on something that's definitely a bit more unusual, and maybe you're under our Silver Star team here and you're on a few medications, then can I recommend you get in touch with us? Because what we do is we have a look at the medications. We actually have links into a pharmacist who's a specialist in lactation, and we'll have a chat with her about the meds that you're on and the safety of having those medications maybe at the same time. Because sometimes women can be on a real mixture of medications, and that actually they have similar effects on the baby, and that might be a bit cumulative. So we might look and say, okay, well, this medication is a bit risky, but we could maybe offer this one instead. It does the same thing, and actually is safer for the baby. So, you know, if any of you are listening and you're thinking, well, I'm on I'm on a whole load of medications, or I'm on this medication and I don't know, I'm not sure about it, and it's not mentioned on the Breastfeeding Network, then actually what you could do is just get in touch with us. You know, give us a call, we'll do the work for you, or talk to your community midwife and she'll get in touch with us. The other thing to say is that obviously we've mentioned this on here quite a few times. We do quite a lot of antenatal appointments now. We're probably doing 2 or 3 a week, and those are for mothers who have an increased risk of maybe not going on to produce a full milk supply, or mothers who had a really difficult time the first time around. So we might have a woman who's had a really challenging breastfeeding experience first time, or even maybe second time, and she needs a bit more support. So what we then do is we chat to you somewhere between 34 and 36 weeks, so before you've had your baby, and we talk about what happened last time, and we talk about putting a plan in place, and we make sure it's on your records so that when that baby's born, we're there to support you and to give you the help that you need, hopefully to have a better experience. Sometimes, you know, it's our genes, we can't change the situation, but very often we can make it a better experience. Sorry, I'm tongue-tied myself. A better experience for the mum. Some of the things that might predispose women to not producing enough milk, and I know actually this, even just talking about this has brought more people to us in the past because they heard it, are things like having hypothyroidism, having polycystic ovaries, having maybe an IVF pregnancy for maternal reasons, not paternal but maternal reasons. Mothers who have diabetes are maybe at more risk of not producing milk quite so quickly because of their insulin resistance. But the first 3, so hypothyroidism, polycystic ovaries, and maybe an IVF pregnancy due to maternal reasons, those might put mothers on the back foot to produce enough milk. So in that situation, if you're one of those women, if you're sitting there thinking, I've got PCOS, and if you've needed to take metformin in order to become pregnant, then give us a shout, give us a call, because we would like to support you and make sure we hit the ground running when that baby's born, to make sure we maximise your opportunity to have a full milk supply, because some things put you on the back foot. So just protecting your milk supply is so important. I've been supporting a mother who's on level 5 at the moment, and I went to see her yesterday, and the baby was day 2. So and she was producing just droplets of colostrum. So we popped her on the pump. We don't often do that, but she was day 2, and I thought, well, we'll give it a go just for the stimulation. So I popped her on the pump, and we managed to get 0.5 mils. Now, I haven't got my syringe out today. We'll see if I can find one. In the scheme of things, that's not a huge amount of milk, but for colostrum, that's fantastic. That's a really good start. So she got 0.5. So this is where you can see the plunger is here. Take that off, it'll help it stay there. So the plunger is there. So 0.5, that's what it is. This is a 1 mil syringe. So I said to her, right, overnight, I want you to, because I saw her yesterday afternoon, I said, right, overnight, what I want you to do, I said, I want you to be expressing. I want you to do a minimum of 8 in 24 hours, so that could be roughly 3 hourly, but we don't stick to that completely. And I want you to be hand expressing to begin with, then go on the pump for a few minutes, and then back to hand expressing. I went to see her this morning, and she pumped 30 mils. That's how quickly it can turn around, as long as we've got the right plan in place. So if you think that you might have a problem, please get in touch, because you know that's what we're here to support you with. So oh, Charlotte's popped up again. I was told by the doctor when I was on tramadol that I had to stop breastfeeding in 2020. So tramadol is one of our more tricky ones, but we would always check it and check the dosage as well. So Charlotte, when you do have another baby, you know, get in touch with us and let us know what your medications are. We'll check. Not all, you know, I know sometimes you might be told, but if you're told and you think, well, I'm not sure, get in touch with us and we'll check it up. So I was just chatting then about turning the milk supply around. So thinking, for those that are antenatal, you know, do a bit of planning now. Are you on any medications that we perhaps need to be checking up? Do you have a risk factor that we maybe need to know about and have a chat with you before you have your baby? How about learning how to hand express? so that you've got that skill when you're in a situation that you can learn it. It's very hard in the first few hours afterwards, and that's what we're going to be asking you to do. We're going to be asking you to express if you, for any reason, you're struggling with your baby on special care baby unit, or your baby's not attaching. We're going to ask you to express. So if you already have that skill, it makes such a big difference. And that's what the member of staff from the observation area said. Please, can mothers know how to hand express before they come in? If you're looking for guidance, because more than just the leaflet that I mentioned, so it's in this leaflet, you can have a look online, and we have a series of videos, and on one of our videos we talk about hand expressing. So if you go to the OUH, the Oxford University Hospitals, literally put in OUH maternity feeding, it brings up our page, and you'll find on the resources a link to 7 videos that cover, and it's a bit like doing an antenatal class, so go and have a look at them because it covers everything. And there's one about hand expressing, and I filmed a fabulous mum who let me film her and doing hand expressing. If you watch that, and we talk about it as well with a knitted breast, then actually that will give you some really good skills. When you get to your 36-week appointment, have a chat with your community midwife, get some syringes from her, and then you can have a go. We don't suggest you actually start doing this till 37 weeks. You could have a go at maybe just trying at 36, but don't really start collecting until 37 weeks if you decide to collect. Leanne's popped a question up. Leanne says, hi, I'm due on Sunday. When I come in, is it worth bringing in my leftover colostrum collecting syringes to use after the birth? Yes, I've not managed to collect much, but have been practicing hand expressing. Leanne, that's fantastic. That's just exactly what I'm saying. What a mother collects in the antenatal period has absolutely no bearing on her milk supply afterwards. So don't worry about not collecting much, and this is reassurance to anybody else who's watching. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about volumes, and we need to manage expectations on that. But having the skill is so important. Now I'm just going to go over it, and hopefully, if you've accessed our videos and everything, it's thinking about oxytocin to start with. So maybe you just do a little bit of massage, okay? It could be anything you like. Don't do anything you don't like. It's like, and I listen to classical music, but I hate to relax you. So do things you like. So it might be that you like this, or you like this, but just something nice. Think about your baby, visualize your baby. That's really helping you get that bonding going. If you can visualize your baby before they're even born, think about you're going to meet them. What are they going to look like? Are they going to look more like you, or are they going to look more like your partner? So all these things will help getting oxytocin flowing. Being in an environment that's safe, you're not going to have anyone walking in on you, that will really help. Cortisol is the opposite to oxytocin. They don't work together. So if cortisol's high, oxytocin's low. If cortisol's low, oxytocin can work. So think about making sure that you're in a nice environment. After that, you're going to make a C with your finger and thumb, okay? And if you look at my C, it's not like this, it's like this. Finger and thumb together in a pincer movement. And you're going to work your way back from the base of the nipple. You're going to work your way back, feeling, and what you'll find initially is here there'll be no resistance in that bit there, and as you go back you'll suddenly find it feels lumpy and bumpy. One mummy described it to me as feeling like bubble wrap under her fingers. That's where you want to be, where that starts, on that ridge. So you're going to anchor your thumb and your finger onto that ridge, the beginning of that ridge, and you're going to bring them in as if they're going to meet, with the nipple in the middle, if you look. So we don't want this, we want this, okay? This doesn't do so much, this is much better. So it's then in and hold, and it's a long hold. And if you notice, I didn't slide forward, I just anchored and in and hold. Keep it, keep it, keep it, keep it, keep it. Long hold, release, go again. So the release is quick, the hold is long, and you keep it going. Keep it, keep it, keep it, keep it, keep it. Release, go again. What you're trying to get out is thick and gloopy. Colostrum is a food in concentrate. It's like golden syrup. It's literally going to start as glistens when you do see it, little tiny glistens on the nipple, and you might get a number coming at the same point because you have about 9 nipple pores on the nipple, and then they start to build up. So initially you may get nothing, and the first few times you may not get anything, but when it starts to come, what you'll notice is you're doing that, it'll start to build up. And then you'll see it's getting slightly bigger and bigger, and it's thick and gloopy, so it doesn't just drip and then again, and you'll see that drips getting that little droplet is getting bigger, and then go again, and then hopefully you'll get to the point where you can collect it from off the nipple, drop by drop by drop. So that's hand expressing. So thinking about the breast though, it's round, so this is 12 and 6. Once you've worked that one area, once you've really worked it and there's no more coming, you can move your hand on. So you could then go to 3 and 9, you could go to 2 and 7, whatever. Work your way around the breast, but don't swing round lots. Do one area, work it out, on to the next, keep it going, keep that one going, not getting any more, then move on. When you've done all the breast, you go on to the other. Do exactly the same, back to the first, back to the second. This is all going to really help stimulate the milk, get it going. So Leanne, have another go, so and see if maybe there's anything there that I've said that you weren't aware of. Some mums say they can't feel where that ridge is, so we would say then 2 to 3 centimeters from the base of the nipple. This is the base of the nipple here, not here, that's your areola. That's the base of the nipple. So it's 1, 2, 3. Now that happens to be on this knitted breast on the areola. Now some areolas are like this and some are like this. So the areola is not the guide. The guide is 2 to 3 centimeters from the base of the nipple. So 1, 2, 3. Anchor. In, pinch. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Release. In you go again. Hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. Release. In, go again. Hold it. No sliding, you'll get really, really sore. And hopefully what you'll see is you'll build up. So the mummy that I was talking to yesterday on the ward, she had been helped to hand express, but we slightly changed where her fingers were, and I got her to hold for longer than she'd been holding. And she got more in that little first moments doing that than she'd got at any other point. And as I mentioned, she saw a few droplets coming. We managed to get 0.5 out using a combination of the pump and the hand. And when I say the pump, we were scooping it up because the milk with the colostrum was sitting in here, and we were scooping up. It didn't go down in here because it would just been lost. It was just here. We managed to scoop it up off there. And then this morning she got 30 mils. So how amazing was that? I was absolutely delighted for her. Right, well, it's 23 minutes past. We haven't had any more questions. So just wondering if anybody got any more questions, otherwise I'll call it a day. I think everybody's outside enjoying the sunshine or trying to stay cool, drinking cool water. So no more coming through. Right, so as I mentioned, we haven't got a session next week because I'm on leave, but we will be back after that. I say it will be me and Naomi. Naomi will be back by then. We'll be going, and I can't see that we'll have any breaks for a long time because I haven't got any holiday booked for ages. So it's on when I'm here and have breaks when I'm not. So in the meantime, if you think I've identified that you might have a problem producing milk, then please get in touch. If you're antenatal, go and look about hand expressing, get that skill before you come in. You don't have to collect, but just get that skill. And think about safety for your babies. So if you're breastfeeding, just anticipate your baby's going to feed a bit more because it's warm. Don't worry about it, just go with your baby. If you're formula feeding, you could offer a little bit of cool boiled water on top of their normal feeds. So don't skimp on their feeds, it's on top of if they're looking for a little bit more. So and this is up to 6 months. After 6 months, babies that are being breastfed might be grateful for a little bit of cool boiled water alongside their other foods. And thinking about being in the car, trying to keep the temperature down, not having the baby in the car seat for too long, getting them out so that they, it helps them. Don't let them slump forward. And if you're going on holiday, thinking about where's your baby going to sleep, think safety. So I highly recommend having a look at that Baby Summer Safety leaflet by the Lullaby Trust, and it's got a video. So well, it's been lovely having all these questions. If nobody's got any more, then I might just sign off and go and see the mummies on the wards instead. And maybe I'll be seeing one of you on the wards, or some of you on the wards in the next few weeks if you need our support. But just to remind you how to contact us, you can reach us. All our contact details are on the infant feeding webpage. So you do OUH maternity feeding as a Google search, and up will come. You can reach us by phone, you can reach us by email, and we will respond as quickly as possible. We have people working on our team normally 6 days a week. We often don't have someone working on a Sunday. We're not quite big enough to have somebody in every single day, and that seems to work quite well. So give us a shout. We sometimes don't ring you till quite late, so if you leave us a message and we will get back to you, but sometimes it takes us a day or two to get back to you, or a day or so to get back to you. It might not be the same day. So thank you very much, one and all, and think about your questions for when we get back in 2 weeks' time. All right, bye.